Welcome to the 12th episode of Legislative Lens, People and Policy. For the past year, we have released one episode per month, diving into the issues that matter most to our communities. Today's episode focuses on sustainability and resiliency here in Plymouth. Climate change is reshaping how we approach our coastal communities across the Commonwealth, from protecting homes, businesses, and infrastructures to planning for a more resilient future. In the first half of the episode, we will discuss the role of Plymouth's Energy and Environmental Office and its Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Plan. We'll hear from Mike Cahill, Plymouth's Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Planner, and the work his office does, how they collaborate with the state and local stakeholders, and how Plymouth is thinking proactively about resiliency. We're also joined by Representative Kathy LaNatra, State Representative for the 12th Plymouth District and House Chair of the Coastal Caucus. She'll discuss the importance of the work that the Coastal Caucus does, the work being done through the caucus, and how they help advance legislation that supports coastal communities. In the second half of the episode, we'll be joined by Charlie Sidoti, Executive Director of InnSure, a nonprofit innovation hub that helps communities integrate insurability planning into economic development. Charlie brings more than 35 years of experience in insurance and analytics and will share how innovative approaches can help insurance work for everyone as our climate continues to change. We will discuss how InnSure is working with the town of Plymouth on a pilot program related to insurance challenges faced by residents in flood zones and other vulnerable areas. I'm excited to learn more and to share with our listeners the practical strategies, innovative ideas, and the collaboration that are helping Plymouth adapt and thrive in a changing world. Welcome to the podcast, Mike and Kathy.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. I always like to kind of start off the podcast with a little bit of level setting so everyone kind of understands where we're coming from. So, Mike, I'll just start with you. If you can tell us a little bit about the work that Plymouth, you do in your role and that your office does, and what are some general steps that Plymouth is doing to create the resiliency?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Mike Cahill. I'm the Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Planner for the town. When I talk about the town of Plymouth, I always like to start with our strength. So Plymouth is blessed with an abundance of access to 37 miles of shoreline and an abundance of natural resources. It's important to note that those natural resources provide both recreational and economic opportunities for Plymouth residents, but also the South Shore region in general. The Select Board back in 2021, had the foresight to declare a climate emergency to ensure that we're safeguarding those residents from the effects of climate change. With climate change, we're seeing alterations in rainfall patterns, temperature, humidity over a period of time, which is causing stress to our natural systems and natural resources. So within that climate emergency, it led to the creation of my position. It led to the creation of our Climate Action Net Zero Committee, our CANS committee, but also our Climate Action Adaptation Plan that was approved by the Select Board in May of 2024. The best way to think of that plan is a roadmap for Plymouth for the next 10 to 15 years, really even 20 years, identifying physical and transitional risks associated with the negative externalities of climate change, but also identifying opportunities. I think when we think of climate change, we always focus on the risks. I think it's important for us to think about the opportunities as a way to rebuild our infrastructure and communities in a way that maximizes utility for our residents.
That's great. No, thank you for that. And can you tell us a little bit about what CANS does, just so that some of our listeners who might not know?
Sure. Yeah. So really the role of both myself and our CANS committee is to implement the actions within our Climate Action Adaptation Plan, or our CAP. It's a little bit daunting, but through the process of creating the CAP, there are 62 priority actions that were identified within 5 areas of focus: buildings, energy and infrastructure, waste, transportation, natural systems, and health, safety, and preparedness. So within our plan, we're really prioritizing a whole of government, but really a whole of community approach to climate change, where myself and CANS work with internal departments in town, but also with community leaders and direct stakeholders to implement those 62 actions within the plan.
It's a lot, but thank you for being here. Thank you for doing that. And then for CANS, of course, I know there's a lot of active members who are really passionate about it and have been doing some really great work with you. So thank you for that.
Certainly.
And then Kathy, if you can tell our listeners about the purpose of our Coastal Caucus and kind of the work that the Coastal Caucus does.
Sure. But first, I want to say how fortunate Plymouth is to have Mike and his team.
Yes.
I mean, I represent 6 towns, and not all of these towns, some of them are coastal towns, do not have this team in place. And you've done an amazing job since you've been here. I just want to start off with that. But thank you for having me, Michelle. So, Michelle, you're actually on the Coastal Caucus as well. It's a joint legislative caucus, and we're focused on issues impacting coastal communities across the Commonwealth, including climate change, fishing, and lobster industry, aquaculture, marine technology, ocean conservation, and the blue economy, and much more. So I do have a co-chair. My Senate co-chair is Senator Bruce Tarr. He represents the North Shore, including Gloucester, Essex, Newbury, and Ipswich. And we meet regularly to discuss issues that relate to the coast in an informal setting. And we host experts and officials that are working on issues that affect all our coastal communities.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just a nice way to learn a kind of a deeper outlook of things that are happening. Like they have dense studies that are done, and they really are able to break it down to make it so something that you can explain and not have to use all the like rhetoric, the kind of the terminology that can be really confusing, which kind of leads me to my next thing. We talk a lot about climate change, and there's different feelings and different ideas about what climate change is. And thought maybe we could talk a little bit about what climate change really is. What is that definition, and what are we really trying to, protect our community from?
Sure. Yeah, us scientists definitely love our jargon. I'll say that. So really, this is a distinction I think is fairly common. I think the easiest way to describe it is weather is really focused on short-term events. The difference between climate change and weather, Weather is really focused on short-term events, so daily impacts. So it might be rainfall events. It could be oceanographic conditions. It could be temperature swings. But really, that's on a scale of, by the minute, by the day, even by the week or year, where climate is a much longer term scale. It's looking at, water runoff patterns, humidity, temperature over a region, over decades, even 30 plus years at times. So when we're talking about climate change, we're really talking about that major swing in a region in temperature, humidity, water runoff that's typically, that is created by anthropogenic factors, namely the burning of fossil fuels.
Yes. Ooh.
So interesting, because you've mentioned humidity a few times, and I never would put that word into climate change. So I learn so much every time I sit with you. So thank you.
I know. I wouldn't have thought about that either. But thank you for that information, because it does really help put kind of what you're doing and the importance of the work that you're doing. And it's not about, so many people say it's really cold outside right now, and it's supposed to be really cold outside.
Sure.
But then there are other winters that, it was like 60 degrees in the middle of December. So that, it's that long, it's more of the pattern and not so much that like what's right in front of you, what's being created.
Certainly.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges that are facing Plymouth right now as related to climate change?
Yeah. So like I kind of started off by saying, we're blessed with our 37 miles of coastline, which provides tremendous resources and tremendous opportunity. But I think it's important to note that 1,561 of total Plymouth buildings in town, or 9% of all of our buildings, are located within an area that's vulnerable to a 100-year flood. Additionally, 81% of our critical municipal facilities are located within a flood zone. Now, that's significant and that's staggering.
It is significant.
Wow, I'd never heard that stat before. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and when we think about climate projections, the state, the Commonwealth, has a tremendous tool called Resilient Mass that shares projections. In Plymouth, what we're looking at is an increase of 24% in heavy rainfall events per year, and additionally 2.4 inches of sea level rise, all by 2050. So with all that added stress that we're looking at, it's going to, cause issues with our infrastructure, our bridges, roads, and culverts, our utilities, disruptions to our emergency services and our economic systems. So really, there's a ton of risk, especially when it comes to the coastal areas, although it provides us opportunity.
Yeah. Ooh. That's a lot to take in. 9%. No, that's no. And so we hear the challenges that face Plymouth, and we're not alone. We had I'm on the, I think it was in the Emergency Preparedness Joint Committee, one that we had that when we really talked about that. Was it not Chelsea?
It was the food.
Yes,
that's interesting, because we're planning a field trip there soon.
Oh, cool.
And that made me think of that.
And they have their, we're 75% of the food that comes to Massachusetts, and our fruit and vegetables are all right there. And that's within a flood zone. And there's all happening. So it's not just us that are dealing with this. So many people.
Federal funds to fix it, and they were taken away.
And that's where, so it's when we look at that, what kind of issues is the Coastal Caucus or the House in general kind of looking at when we're talking about how to help these communities.
How to help these communities.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these communities were going to be helped and had projects in place,
Yes.
and they had federal funding for that. And that federal funding has either decreased or it's gone away totally.
Yes.
But what we do as a caucus is we do meet with, professionals, and DMF is one, or CZM, and all
Zone management.
the owners of that. Oh, I think they're the Chelsea Planning Board or something that came to that hearing. And we hear all of these things. So collectively, we can come together and how can we solve this? And some of our members have legislation that's very important, that may be important to the North Shore.
Yep.
You have legislation for the horseshoe crabs that affects people in the North Shore that we wouldn't think as it does on the South Shore.
Yep.
So collaboratively, we can come together and we can advocate for each other's bills. So it's a great community for all our coastal towns. And it doesn't just have to be on the coast. A lot of the people in there could be from Western Mass, have a lot of lakes or a lot of ponds, that type of thing, because that involves climate change as well, which we don't think of inland. But it's a great group. It's a very active caucus, as you know. We do have a lot of people come in. Mass Clean Energy Council has come in. We've had so many people come in. But we do take field trips, too, which is great. So we get to see each other's community.
Yeah. No, that's one of the great things about all of the different committees and caucuses are the field trips, where you are exposed to things that you wouldn't be exposed to otherwise. Like, we come, we see Plymouth, we know what's happening here, but I had never heard about this food warehouse that was in a flood zone, and, what's going to happen to our food come 10, 15 years from now.
Supply,
So kind of scary situation, but important that it is in the front of mind for so many, and that Plymouth is working as Kathy said, like not every town has the luxury to have somebody in your position making sure that we're strong and ready. Now, going on that we're strong and ready, can you share some of like the projects that you're working on or that you finished kind of with our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So one that's really exciting is the Jenny Gristmill Nature Lake Fishway Bypass. So this is a project that's kind of been in the works for, I think 2016 is when we first kicked off the feasibility study. So to level set a little bit, Town Brook is a 1.67 mile coastal stream that runs through the heart of Plymouth, running through Plymouth Rock. It was the freshwater body that led settling in Plymouth in the first place. But Plymouth, over the last 20 years or so, we've removed 5 dams along Town Brook, restoring the natural flow. There's only one obstruction left on Town Brook, and that's the Jenny Gristmill. This site's a little bit unique as it is one of the oldest, if not the single oldest dam in the country. It dates back to 1636.
Wow.
So with most projects where we have a stream impediment like that, the solution would be to remove the barrier. This one has historic significance. Additionally, there's recreational significance as the mill is in place and is operational and provides museum tours. So what we've elected to do is what's called a Nature Lake Fishway Bypass to restore ecological functions and to reduce public safety hazards. Now, the Jenny Gristmill Dam is a significant hazard dam. If it were to breach, there are roughly 40 properties immediately downstream that would be inundated. The moniker of significant hazard means that failure would likely cause loss of life or significant economic disruptions. So within this project, we're making repairs to the dam. We're creating a Nature Lake Fishway Bypass that's circumventing the dam, and we're also doing park and trail improvements to improve recreational benefits for residents.
Nice.
So
Oh no, go ahead.
In the case of a significant storm event that we're expecting with climate change, the dam will be able to adequately pass water, reduce risks for residents, and ensure all the ecological functions are restored.
Wow. I mean, it's a huge project.
And where does that funding come from?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate to receive upwards of $10 million from NOAA, from the federal government. Additionally, throughout the project, we were supported by local state agencies throughout the way to help us to get to that point. And additionally, there was some funding from the town, from the municipality as well, to provide us match for grants through the process.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you work with those state agencies that are, provide you grants, and how kind of that relationship works?
Sure. Yeah. So the state agencies are excellent for providing us with the technical assistance, but also the funding assistance. I'd be remiss if I didn't note the local delegation in your role in helping us advocate for projects. Additionally, I'll also say about the state agencies. Typically, when we're identifying a project to restore some type of ecological function or reduce climate risk, it's important for us to monitor baseline conditions, and we rely on state funding and state resources to help us identify those issues. That way we can kind of gauge the efficacy of the project once it's been completed, but we can also accurately use the baseline conditions to advocate for funding, which is where the delegation comes in and helps us through that process to get the funding.
Cool. And do they help? So when you're working with the agencies, are there examples of other towns that you use as like this project went really well? Like I'm just thinking my school committee perspective, we know that we're able to cut the cost down of building our schools where we have MSBA because with that kind of knowledge base and kind of I know nothing is the same, but being able to kind of say this worked over here, maybe we can try this kind of way of doing something.
Yeah, so there's certainly examples of other projects that have happened in surrounding communities in New England that have helped contribute to institutional knowledge related to these restoration objectives. And that's certainly something that we take with every project that we work on. We look at other examples and see how we can use the institutional knowledge to improve the final product in Plymouth.
Cool. Oh, that's wonderful. So here's another thing. You talked about the committees that people can be involved in, but are there other ways that people can get involved with what you do in your office? I mean, I know we have a lot of, we have Sustainable Plymouth that it kind of is not connected directly with you, but does do some work. So are there other ways for people to get involved that maybe aren't on cans or on official town committees?
Yeah, so Plymouth is very fortunate to have such a population that cares so deeply about these issues. There are over 13 local environmental groups that are operating in Plymouth. And I always say this is a whole of community approach. If it's not for the residents that truly care about these issues, it's really, just me and the members of my department that are waving our arms saying this is an issue. Without the support of the community, a lot of these projects would never move forward. So I always say, there are numerous people to get involved with. You can always reach out to our department directly, and we're happy to put you in touch with people. Additionally, we're always trying to find ways of incorporating citizen science into our research.
Yeah.
So having residents be active in the policy process. So I would say if you're interested in becoming involved in these issues, please reach out to us and we can try to find an avenue for you.
That's great. No, because one of the things that we always talk about here on this podcast that comes up over and over again is how do we get more people involved and how do people have their voice heard? Because so many times I think, and you hear it all the time, people don't actually think that we're listening or they don't know how to get engaged or get involved. And so knowing that they can participate in, maybe they have 1 hour a month to give you, or they have, I know there's lots of people who have those bird watching apps where that's what they do. They go for walks and they can register that, or they register a different insect that they don't see. I don't know much about it. I've just heard about it. So giving people an opportunity to be able to be involved is really the most critical piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We prioritize a collaborative governance approach in everything that we do. And we think that that's going to yield the highest social gains when we have more people involved and more people involved in the decision-making process.
And I mean, what you do is so important, and it kind of transitions us to our next part of our podcast. But because people are so interested, because our community is so impacted, as you said, 9% of all buildings are located in what would be a flood zone, right? And so we have our community. You're talking about. I mean, clearly the Rock is in a location that is in a flood zone.
The whole downtown,
the whole
Water
downtown
Street, all of our new restaurants,
right?
Yeah.
You think about how does that impact long term, and you have people whose homes are on cliffs, and people who directly impacts. They can't get insurance and all kinds of things, but so. I think that is a really important kind of conversation and transitions us over to our next kind of discussion point where we're talking about those innovative ideas. I mean, you've got the dams that you're working on. There's so many other. I know we talked about the heat zones. We went on our little, not little, but we went on
went on our field trip.
Our field trip, and we walked around to talk about that a little bit. I don't know if you want to talk about that project. I know it's not proceeding as fast as you would have hoped, but I think is a really interesting one as well.
Yeah, so that's our downtown resiliency project. That's re-envisioning 3,000 linear feet in downtown Plymouth from Samoset Street to the Main Street Extension parking lot. Obviously, a very highly traveled and a very significant part of Plymouth. But additionally, it's one of our greatest urban heat islands in town. So an urban heat island is an area that has a lot of gray infrastructure, pavement, rooftops, dark rooftops, tall buildings that effectively attracts and retains heat. So what we're looking to do is implement nature-based solutions on the planting of trees, native trees and native vegetation to help provide ecosystem services in that area to essentially help cool it, make it more pedestrian friendly for residents, and also improve the economic vitality of the downtown by really re-engaging the historical and the cultural aspects of the downtown.
It'll be really cool
beautiful.
when you're able.
It'll be beautiful.
It'll just be so nice. I mean, we have such a wonderful, vibrant downtown anyways, and then to be able to add that on top of it, I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, we always say the best policy is built on strong scientific, economic, and social data, and this is a perfect example of a project that really encompasses all three of those aspects. Yes, we're really excited about that one.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right, so I can't thank you both enough for joining me to set the stage for the next part of this podcast to discuss the innovative ideas that Plymouth is engaged in at this time. And now that we've heard kind of about the innovative approaches, how our Coastal Caucus is really focusing on how they can help throughout the community. And then we've also have exploring how the communities can plan for resiliency in other critical ways is where we're going to kind of go that we've been talking about, with Mike's office and all that he's been able to accomplish and the work of really all of the town of Plymouth. And so joining me we have is Charlie Sidoti, Executive Director of InnSure, a nonprofit innovative hub focused on helping communities integrate insurable planning and economic development. With over 35 years of experience in the insurance and analytics, Charlie brings a wealth of experience on creative, innovative solutions that make insurance work for everyone, even as our climate changes. So we'll dive into how InnSure is working with the town of Plymouth. Welcome to the podcast, Charlie.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here. Super excited for this conversation.
No, thank you for taking the time. I know you're really busy. So I kind of want to start this conversation with both Mike and Charlie again to level set. So can you share a little bit between the two of you how kind of the purpose behind this pilot program and a little bit more about the goals?
Sure.
You want to go or do you want to go, Mike?
I can hop in first. Yeah. So CZM, they recently are releasing their Resilient Coast document. And within that document, they were able to demonstrate that since 1980, there was about $10 to $20 billion in coastal damages associated with climate hazards. Additionally, they project by 2070, there will be upwards of $1 billion per year in damages. On the federal level, the United States NOAA released a report that showed that there is 27 climate disasters of over $1 billion, totaling $182 billion in 2024. And since 1980, there were 403 climate-related disasters totaling $2.9 trillion. So this is really financial risk for the town and for the United States in general. So it's really not a matter of if an event like this is going to happen, but when it's going to happen. And our goal with Charlie is to figure out how we can make sure that Plymouth can rebound quickly when an event like this happens and to implement insurance planning into our resilience planning.
That's great. You brought the numbers, so that's awesome. Frequency and severity, as he was saying, is increasing. And the other thing people don't necessarily fully appreciate is what is called the protection gap. The difference between those numbers of the catastrophic damage and what is insured. The gap can be, it's typically like 30 to 50%. And things like flood, it's even higher, much higher potentially. So those dollars are landing on the individuals and the companies in the community. And if they can't absorb those hits, it goes to the municipality. And then, potentially it goes up to federal disaster relief, but that is receding. So these are not just real issues right now because, the frequency and severity are increasing, but they're getting worse. And when a community is doing such great work, like investing in the physical resilience, like the projects we heard, and we can kind of get into some of those, what they need to do is capture the value of those in the insurance market so they can get more affordable, more accessible insurance as a return on their investments into resilience. Sometimes that happens, but it doesn't always happen. And we can talk about what we're doing to try to understand the market dynamics and the response to these climate issues, but also the municipal economic development planning, insurability planning.
Wow, some of those numbers you shared are, they're really high, but you just don't, yeah.
It's staggering.
Yes,
Yeah.
staggering is the
So-
right word. You just don't kind of understand. And we all know that our town budgets, our state budgets, our budgets are tight. Like if we have a $1 billion storm, I mean, what does that do? What does that do to Plymouth? How do we make sure that we're ready? And so the important work, both not just for the town itself, but our individual homeowners. And that's, not something to not like really focus on, because that's critical. These are what people have for their investments. This is their homes and where they live. And so how is this approach that you all are working on going to benefit both? Are we talking businesses and individuals? Are we talking just the town? Like how does that work?
Yeah, so we were fortunate to get funding from CZM.
Coastal Zone Management, I think
Correct.
just so people know.
From Coastal Zone Management, upwards of $294,000 to begin a project looking at the downtown area, 500 commercial and residential properties, looking for gaps in insurance, but also identifying the level of risk that each of those properties are facing. From there, Charlie in the InnSure team, we hope to take that data and we hope to build out what's called a community embedded insurance program. And I'll turn it over to Charlie to talk a little bit about what that means.
And you asked the question earlier, like if a $1 billion loss happens to Plymouth or the region,
Yeah.
how does that affect people? So what we were trying to and a lot of the funding is going towards what we call a total cost of risk, accounting approach, so that you can literally answer that question. Like, what does happen with different stakeholders? How does that $1 billion loss or whatever the number is flow through to the residents or the commercial entities in that zone of interest that Michael was talking about, the downtown area, those 500. But then the second part is like it's a scenario planning approach. We create this baseline scenario that says if like a normal loss, like one of those storms that comes through every 10 years comes through, how does that land on people? If a more severe storm, like a 1 in 100-year storm, how does that land on people? And if the really catastrophic storm, the 1 in 500-year event, how does that flow through? And so that's our baseline. And then we start doing different types of planning, which is how do the physical interventions that is being invested in through the resilience investments, how do they change those numbers, both the numbers and like where they land? And then there's also, I think most of the world, when we talk to people outside of the insurance industry, they recognize the relationship between resilience and insurance markets. And if communities are more resilient, insurance becomes more affordable and more accessible. That is true, but there are also other factors that shape insurance markets beyond just physical resilience. Capital structures, understanding of risk. A lot of the things, when I first came on the call, Michael was talking about nature-based solutions. and hyper local investments into nature-based solutions. Those are two things that insurance capital is very global in nature. It comes out of Munich and London and Switzerland. They're not super connected to what's going on locally. And they're also not super sophisticated at calculating the value in risk reduction to one building for 1 year, which is what they are insuring. Um, so they don't necessarily, and especially on like nature-based solutions, which they really haven't figured out how to quantify. So those are so what they end up doing is saying the value of them is zero, which is definitely not true because
Yeah.
they don't know what the value is. So what we're trying to do is help community leaders start with this baseline accounting approach that says, what are these numbers? How do they flow through? And then go back to the industry and say, we did this because, people at the municipal planning level, they know the risk better than anybody, for sure. And what we're trying to give them is pathways back to the industry. We're a nonprofit. We don't sell insurance, but we do work with a lot of insurance companies, especially the ones that are trying to be more innovative. And and so we're trying to give, the town of Plymouth and people in the planning group pathways to not just better understand and better target their resilience investments, but also take those things and shape the market and shape the insurance market, understand how the insurance market works and shape it so that the value is captured for the taxpayers that are investing in the resilience and the homeowners and the businesses that need to be able to have affordable insurance.
Now, how does that work exactly? I understand like uh we have these giant insurance companies that, as you said, are from all over the world, and they don't care about what Little Plymouth is doing. What important infrastructure changes we are doing, and so how does Plymouth make that change to these big companies and say, hey, we just put an investment of however $1 million into this, making these
Yeah.
homes safer, making this part of our downtown safer, or, looking further afield, we've done some work in Cedarville or something like that, and we're making it so these homes don't fall into the ocean, or how do we in Plymouth make that change?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it is what we're really trying to do. And
Yeah.
there's multiple pathways to doing that. There's not a silver
Yeah.
bullet, but some of the pathways are collaborative in nature with the innovative companies that you're right about, and I characterize the industry as like these huge global things that don't care about what's going on locally. That is generally a challenge, but there are parts of it that are more innovative than others. And so one is collaboratively working with them to, in one, just basically inform them, take this kind of analytics that we're trying to work with the community to really understand what's going on and make it easier for them to respond. But then another one is what he mentioned earlier, community embedded insurance. That's
Mm.
leveraging procurement. It's very difficult. It's difficult for a community to kind of engage with these big insurance kind of markets, but it's really almost impossible for an
Oh
individual
God, yeah.
homeowner to do it. So there's possibilities of group procurement at a community level to say, hey, we're going to embed insurance in other programs we have that, provides collective purchasing power. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And there are some companies that are interested in doing it. There's also innovative insurance products. Through conversations with you all and others, we've heard a lot about the manufactured home, mobile home markets
Mm-hmm.
being, a
I
constrained
asked that.
market. It's just not enough product being offered. So how do we kind of really kind of pull in insurers to say we need at least one or two to kind of focus on this market.
Mhm.
And that is probably going to lead to development of new insurance products. So innovation can happen at the product level, like, oh, here's a new product for manufactured homes. It can happen at the distribution or procurement level, depending on what side of the market you're on. And it can also happen at the capital stack level. So instead of going to a $40 billion Munich Re that has, that doesn't know who Plymouth is or where
Mhm.
Plymouth is, you can create kind of pools of capital that, the FAIR Plan is like an insurer of last resort. So that is a pool of capital.
Yeah.
That's when everything is broken and you
Yeah.
can't get insurance anywhere. What we want is pools of capital that are more catalytic and promote innovation and promote investments in resilience
Yeah.
and are connected to the local community. The banking industry has done this really well. There's these community development financial institutions that work with communities, and they invest, they lend into communities, into areas that are really difficult to lend into, but there's like economic development activity that makes them less difficult to lend into. And because they know what's going on at the local level, they can put money in to lend into it. You could do the same thing with insurance. So we're looking at capital stacks, and we're trying to think through how can you create community development reinsurers that back innovative insurance
Yeah.
products that recognize the value of resilience investment. So we're really trying to address this from like a system level. How do we fix the whole system, the products, the distribution, the capital, and integrate it directly in with community economic development and resilience planning? And that's what we think insurability planning is.
Yeah.
It's a new thing, but people get it because they see the pain.
Now, how is that being done with Plymouth? So, like, Mike, what is your role in all of this in this pilot?
Yeah, so we back in 2022, we started our Blue Future Conference, and really our goal is to create public-private partnerships with innovators within the clean tech sector. Probably back in 2024, after that conference, we had connected with a group that was using technology to gauge oceanographic conditions in real-time sensors. From there, we were able to connect with InnSure. We sat down with Charlie and his team, and right away it kind of became a no-brainer that this was an opportunity to Plymouth to capitalize on.
Yeah.
So we could really, like we said, when these events happen, we want to make sure that Plymouth can rebound quickly.
Yeah.
If there are gaps in the market, we can find those gaps, we can identify those gaps, and we can provide solutions to residents to help them really limit the pain in an event like this.
Now, how long is this pilot program going on for? How?
Yeah, so we have funding for 2 years. We're anticipating kickoff in the next few weeks. And from that point, we expect it will take about a year and a half to build out our pilot. Throughout the pilot process, I think it's important to note we've talked a lot about collaborative governance and community engagement. We'll have opportunities to share information with residents, keeping them aware of the process. But also, I think it's really important to note that this study is reliant on data that we're going to be getting from community members. We want to make sure that their voices are heard. They're telling us, the risks that they're seeing at their own property, so we can incorporate that into the study. And that's something that I think is really unique about this project and something that we're really looking forward to.
Oh, that's great. We love community involvement here. I think that's really the most important. Now, are there lessons to be learned from others who have kind of done this project? Is this the second community that you've been involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. We started this. We got a grant from the QBE Foundation. QBE is a large kind of Australian insurer, which was kind of interesting. But they funded a project in Salem, Massachusetts. And that program has since got additional funding from the MVP program. We got to build out a kind of version 1.0 of the technology. And right now we're like some of the, I wouldn't, they're lessons, but they're also kind of, we're trying to figure out like, how do you integrate the like that data capture that Michael was talking about, that how do you take this data and analyze it? How do you feed it back to the planners, to the individuals, and where and when do you bring in like inspectors, like auditors? So the program is somewhat modeled after the mass save energy audits, but they're resilience focused.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to model it after that, but we're starting to see the differences and what is the interaction between kind of the physical and the insurance market. So there's a lot of kind of tactical things, or some of it are very kind of like data intensive.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about Plymouth is their just innovative mindset. Like,
Yes.
it's really easy to do a product when the community understands, like, innovation is about like 6 steps forward, 2 steps back, and kind
Yeah.
of test and learn.
Yeah. And now it really just sounds like you are stewarding that transition from that greenhouse gases to that clean energy with insurance. And do you feel as though that is something, as we go through this 1.5 or 2 year pilot, and then we're able to have successes there, we have successes in Salem, and I would imagine as you get bigger and more communities to be involved in this, that you find the kinks in different places, and then you kind of even them out, but then it becomes something that is more affordable overall, and is something that you probably have more insurances, that it's not just this over niche over here. I think you talked about systemic changes, and that maybe there's some of that happens.
I think absolutely. I think the technology is a means to this kind of broader vision. And I think the technology enables communities, which Plymouth kind of jumped into, be like, we want to be a test bed
Yeah.
for insurance innovation. We really want to create like a whole bunch of communities and make Massachusetts the test bed for insurance innovation.
Yeah.
But it needs to come from the communities, because we're not a good test bed if we're not solving the community's problems.
Yep.
So we really are committed to starting with, like, the community municipal planners, and bringing it back to the industry. But we believe in addition to all the resilience and kind of addressing the pain around insurance prices and this unfunded liability that can flow through, we also think the insurance industry is going to change dramatically over the next 5 to 10 years. And we want those to be captured in Massachusetts. And some of the companies we're working with are startups in Massachusetts that are innovating, a multi-trillion dollar industry.
And I think we see, overall, and Kathy's been obviously involved at the state government longer than I have, but in the time that I've been paying attention, in my school committee role, you can see so many times what happens in our community is you need enough communities in the Commonwealth to prove that something works, or that people are really interested, before it makes kind of a bigger splash, and you can go ahead and kind of put it across the Commonwealth or regionally. So this is the great thing, and I'm really excited to kind of learn more as we go forward on how this really impacts Plymouth. But do either of you have anything additional you want to share on this project in particular?
I think I want to emphasize kind of what Michael was saying about community engagement. People are very interested because it affects their pocketbooks.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to really reshape or shape a $1 trillion industry, we're working, and there's a need to kind of understand how these markets work. The world has really outsourced insurance to the insurance industry, which isn't good. And it's because it's complicated, it's opaque, it's not easy to understand how do these prices happen? What happened? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So, we're really excited about, and we hope that the community engages with us all along the way, because we need that help.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I think you mentioned the manufactured home piece, and while we have Kathy here, and kind of a little bit when we have a couple minutes left, if you guys want to share that work that you're doing a little bit on the manufactured home pieces.
Yeah, so it's a proposal now, and we are circulating around. We have some potential funders, but it's essentially where Plymouth is kind of focused on this geographic specific focus around the residents and the businesses in the downtown area. This is a little bit broader, kind of geographically, but it's narrowly focused on a very specific type of, residence, the manufactured and mobile homes. And what we're trying to do is say, hey, maybe we can create some products, some insurance products for both the park, owners, operators, and the homeowners, and maybe tie it to some resilience kind of investments that can then bring in insurers. And we have one, like I said, we have one insurer. MSI Insurance has agreed to provide some product development support on their dime. If we kind of do some analysis and help kind of connect people and help to find the exact problem. So it's an opportunity to take the same concept but apply it to like a differently defined problem.
Yeah. It was very fortunate. I actually met Charlie's team. Stephen Brandt is who I met at the conference. And funny story, Stephen and I grew up in the same town, went to high school together, and we just happened to see each other. And I said, "Why are you here?" And he explained the pilot program in Plymouth. And I'm like, could this help with my manufactured home, issue? And you have a manufactured home community in your district as well. And I have several. And they have been reaching out that the insurance companies were dropping them. So it was happenstance. And it's been great because we get to work with InnSure for the pilot in Plymouth. And now we get to work with them again on a different project.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I mean, one doesn't think about insurance creating change or really helping, because so many times the insurance, they help, when you need it and you're in a disaster situation or something happens. But oftentimes you just think, oh, I have to pay my insurance, or I have to do this, or it's not something that's helping you. But I think this conversation has shown that hopefully over time we'll be able to get insurance to help benefit us all in a different way. And thinking innovatively, like Plymouth has done and InnSure is clearly doing, is really important for all of us in our future. But I just want to thank you all for joining this conversation today to help really understand how, the State House and the local and our communities and, independent nonprofit, private nonprofits work to really remain resilient in face of climate change, because there is really, there's so much we need to do. And, so a very special thanks to Mike Cahill, Plymouth's Climate Resiliency and Sustainability Planner, State Representative Kathy LaNatra, and Charlie Sidoti, Executive Director of InnSure, for joining this podcast and really sharing your expertise and knowledge on all these areas that I know I learned so much today, and I'm really appreciative of that. I hope today's discussion has given our listeners new insight into this important work being done in Plymouth for the impacts of climate change, from extreme temperatures and erosion to larger, more powerful storms. So thank you all today for joining me. I really appreciate each of you being here. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Legislative Lens, People and Policy. I'm State Representative Michelle Badger. Our next episode in March will focus on caucuses in the State House and how they function and why they matter, a topic we haven't explored yet. In the meantime, you can stay connected with the work we're doing at the State House and in Plymouth by following me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky. You can also reach me directly at michelle.badger@mahouse.gov with questions or ideas for future podcasts. Thank you again for tuning in, and take care.